What's up, everybody? Welcome back. You're watching our third episode on the Tabletops podcast. I'm Claudia Romero, and these are my co-hosts.
I'm Domenico Orlandi.
I'm Lucas Giordano.
And I'm Lucas Damiani.
Dom is back with us today. How are you feeling? How are you feeling this week?
Better than last week, that's for sure, but it's good to be back.
Back and better.
Yeah.
All right, so before we get into our quick fire segments, we asked you guys to place your votes on our last week's polls, which are found on EmergeTO on Instagram. So the first question we asked you guys last week was, will ex-Toronto head coach Mike Babcock ever coach in the NHL again? And 43% said yes, and 57% said no. So there's
Accurate.
And the next question we had was, should the Leafs re-sign goaltender Frederik Andersen this offseason? 54% said yes, and 46% also said no. So there you have it. All right, guys, it's that time for our quick fire segments. This is where we're bringing you our top sports news from the past week. Let's start with Lowry. Lowry is remaining a Raptor. This was huge speculation for who knows how long. He will become an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised by the news. Kind of felt like he was gone for sure at one point throughout that day. I think around like 2:30 when they were clearing roster spots by trading away Matt Thomas and Terrence Davis. But I guess they never got the deal that they wanted, which obviously would have included Tyler Hero, I think, from the Heat. I think that's the only way Masai was going to let him go, and it never came about, and I'm pretty happy about it. I don't think they ever should have moved Lowry. I think this year has been a bad year, but you don't really just lose your greatest player ever and sell low like that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Lucas. I do like that they kept him, but at the same time, I'm torn because there's the emotional part of me that's like, you know what, Lowry was our leader. He took us to a chip. He's the first person to do that. He was by far the best leader that we've ever had. But at the same time, you can kind of tell these Raptors are kind of fading out here. Doesn't look like they're going to make the playoffs. And it would have been nice to get something for Lowry and just build towards the future rather than possibly not re-signing him and having him walk for nothing. Like, I don't know if it was the right call business-wise, but personal-wise, I think I don't think there's going to be any Raps fans who are like, oh, man, I'm so pissed Lowry stayed, right? But
yeah, well, you also have to know that they could explore sign and trade in the summer. So
yeah, it's possible.
If that happens, I think it softens the blow a little bit of Lowry leaving, but you never know what that guy's going to do. I mean, he loves it in Toronto, so we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, Norman Powell. He was traded to the Portland Trailblazers for Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood.
Yeah, this was strictly a monetary play by Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster of the Raptors. I think everyone wanted them to keep Powell. Obviously, you want to re-sign a guy of that talent, and I think he's going into the right direction in his career. I think he's going to be a really good player, but you just don't have the money for him, even when you have his bird rights. So moving him now is just, you got to get something in return for somebody that you know for a fact you won't be able to re-sign unless he takes a pay cut, which he shouldn't. So getting Gary Trent, that was huge because he's amazing. He's only 22 years old, and I think he's going to pan out really well. And Rodney Hood, I guess, was just a throw-in kind of, but even him, that's a veteran guy for your locker room, and I think he'll do pretty well here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, go.
Go on.
I'll say something after.
No, I think the trade honestly just works for both teams. Like, Norman's already had a good start with Portland. We saw him back here already against the Raptors. It was nice to see him return already. But like you said, Gary Trent's a huge pickup in this trade. He's very young. He's got a lot of potential, so that's good. Rodney Hood, he's a throw-in. He'll do his job. He'll be a serviceable piece for the team for the rest of the season. But, I mean, I probably won't stay with the team. But Gary Trent is someone that I think has a lot of upside, and I think a lot of fans should be excited about getting in this trade.
Call me a pessimist, but I don't know. I feel like it was a good trade. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like we traded Norman Powell for a younger Norman Powell. And I don't know if that's necessarily what we needed, But at the same time, Lucas, you do make a good point that we don't know if we could have signed him and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But it's just, was it really necessary, or should we have tried to keep a player that's been so like valuable for this team for so many years? And I was talking about it with a few of my coworkers at North Pole Hoops, shout out North Pole Hoops. But even they agree, like, it doesn't seem like this trade needed to be done. It just seemed like maybe Masai was covering for not trading Lowry, so he just made a deal that looked good, but it might not pan out in the end because maybe Norman Powell ends up being a better player than Gary Trent, and he already had the fans on his side. So
Yeah, like I said, it's a monetary thing, right? Because they have so much money tied up in Siakam, Van Fleet, and OG that it's just you can't afford it. You can't afford him. He's going to make so much money next year. He's going to easily double his contract of this year. And Gary Trent just makes bookkeeping a lot easier, considering he makes significantly less and will next year as well after he's signed. But I don't know. It's sad to see Powell go, but
yeah,
I think it was the right move.
Well, Pascal Siakam was also fined for a reported outburst at Nick Nurse. Speaking of him.
Yeah, this was pretty big news for I think like a day and a half. Siakam apparently crossed some sort of line with Nurse after he was benched in the fourth quarter. I'm not surprised by some sort of outburst. I mean, he's a pretty emotional guy, and Nick Nurse is also an emotional coach. I think they've moved past it at this point, but it's hard to see stuff like that happen in such like a down year. I guess everything was just building up to some kind of breakdown, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of shows where the Raps are at right now. This has been not a season that us Raps fans are used to. And you can tell that the players and even the coaching staff are getting a little annoyed with how it's going. But unfortunately, this is a part of a team that looks like they're gonna rebuild. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is definitely a part of the journey, I think. And Pascal's had a rough, I think, 2 years now. I would say ever since winning the championship, he's been not the Siakam that we're really used to. And I think this is his first outburst. And maybe things go up from here because they say that once you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. So hopefully things change soon.
I think a lot of it is like you said, they're having a rough season, and I think Pascal, Nick Nurse, they're both haven't been used to that with the Raptors so far because they've been so successful. Like you talked about before, Pascal has had a rough couple of years. I think he's still kind of transitioning and learning how to be like the go-to guy, and it's still taking him a bit of time. But with the way things are going this season, it's a bit more frustrating, and this kind of just built up to this. So I think I think Nick Nurse and Pascal and the team as a whole in general are kind of just getting used to having a season like this because they haven't had a season like this in a long time. For the past few years, it's been very successful. So I think they're just trying to get used to it, and I mean it shows that they care. I guess like seeing like some emotion and some passion.
Yeah.
I'm glad it didn't lead to anything more. Like it seemed like it got settled pretty quick. So
yeah. I mean, it's good to see that emotion though. Like,
yeah,
you don't want to see your team losing and Siakam gets subbed out really early and he just sits on the bench and chills, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's good to see that passion. That's a passion of a champion for sure. He knows what he's capable of and he knows that he's not living up to it right now. So yeah, I definitely do agree that is a good sign.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about LaMelo Ball. He's out for the season now due to a fractured wrist. What do we think on his rookie season? Do you think he could still win Rookie of the Year despite missing a chunk of the season?
Yeah, when I saw that news, I was devastated, right? Because he's one of the best rookies we've had like in a really long time. Like he's up there with Ja and Zion, obviously last year, but like he's different, man. He's really, really good. And when that happened, I wasn't watching the game, but I saw the tweet come up from, I think it was Shams, and I was like, oh my God, like that's going to ruin his chances. But honestly, now that I think about it more and I've kind of digested it, I think he could still win Rookie of the Year, and honestly, maybe pretty easily, just because he's shown the talent he has and the value he has towards that team.
Yeah, you know, when I heard the news about LaMelo being out for the season, I was heartbroken too because I loved watching him play. He's been a starlet in Charlotte. um, I think could he win the Rookie of the Year? Yes, maybe. I think Wiseman might edge him out just because he's playing the whole season. Um, should he win Rookie of the Year? 100%. He's been, I think, the MVP of the Hornets this year. He's been the heart and soul of that team. He's been the youth and the excitement that I think Charlotte needs to do well. I also think that he's going to be a top player for years to come in the NBA. And I may make a bold statement here and definitely trying to connect sports, but I think the Charlotte Hornets are basically like the 16-17 Maple Leafs. They got that young star rookie in Austin Matthews, the way Charlotte has LaMelo Ball, and they got a young team that's very exciting. Like, you don't see that often. Like, I don't remember how good the 18-19 Leafs were because the 16-17 Leafs were just so much more fun to watch because it was a team that you could tell just didn't really like not care, but didn't really care who they were facing. They were just going to go out there and do their thing. And that's what I think Charlotte does. And that's what I think LaMelo Ball does. He doesn't care who he's facing. He knows that he's going to do well because he's a star. So sucks to see him not play.
I just want to say quick, I think what happens a lot when teams like that emerge, teams young teams like that are really exciting. Like a lot of teams back them up, and I think this is really good for the NBA in general because of how it's been the past few years with all the super teams and stuff. I think a lot of people can get behind teams like this that have a lot of young guys that they build around and seeing them develop. And I feel like that's the only way that they can transition out of this super team era. They have to have a team like that where you build from the bottom up with all these stars, sort of like how OKC did it when they had KD, Westbrook, and all together, but eventually they all went their separate ways and stuff, and it didn't work out. But I feel like that's the only way that they can move on into a different era.
I agree.
All right, on to soccer. CONCACAF men's Olympic qualifying. So Canada was unfortunately eliminated by Mexico 2-0. I mean, although on the bright side, Canada's 2-0 win over El Salvador was impressive. You know, we had Tajon Buchanan scoring 2 goals in that game. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it was a good tournament from Canada. They even played a really good game against Mexico for the first 50 minutes. And then the Canadian keeper turned it over and kind of gave away a weak goal. And I think that's where Mexico started taking over. But that El Salvador win was very impressive. Buchanan's a star in the making. He plays for the New England Revolution. He's done very well for them as well in his rookie year. And him scoring those 2 goals just put him on the map. He's getting interest from teams in Europe. He's getting interest from teams in the MLS. And a lot of people are calling and asking what's going on with Tajon. I think he's definitely going to get a call up to the Canadian men's national team World Cup qualifiers in June. That's for sure. If he doesn't, I'll be surprised. And he'll fit right in with the Canadian movement. Like, Canada's got a good team moving forward. I think he slots right in there, and he's definitely an electric player that a lot of people will have their eyes on soon if they haven't already.
Yeah, like you said, I think there's a lot they can take from this experience. I mean, losing to Mexico, there's no shame in that. Mexico's been the powerhouse in CONCACAF qualifying for a very long time, so it would have been great to see them beat them to show Canada's growth in the game. But I think there's a lot they can take from this. Seeing Tajon Buchanan emerge as a star and getting all this interest, just becoming another great Canadian star that we can look forward to seeing is really exciting. So
yeah, it also just shows the movement that the MLS is making. You know, they're going from what a lot of people considered a retirement league when Beckham, even Zlatan joined, and they were like, it's a retirement league. And now these young players, Buchanan, Jaquil Marshall, Rudy, all these young Canadians specifically are helping turn the narrative into, okay, it's no longer a retirement home. it's a development place for players. It's starting to be a league where players can go to develop and start out their careers and then move forward. So it's good to see all around.
Yeah, it'd be cool to see the MLS become like one of the top leagues in terms of developing players, like the first stage before they move on to a bigger team. Because throughout their history, it's kind of just been, like you said, a retirement home or just a place where they kind of just stay there for their whole career and they don't move on to bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope more players continue with that trend and we can see more people from the MLS go to bigger teams, and it'd be cool to see.
Yeah, they're on the road.
Road.
Yeah, well, the MLS season is to begin in mid-April. So how does TFC look going into an important season with a new coach by the name Chris Armas?
Yeah, I mean, the Raptors, the TFC squad are definitely it's one that we're not exactly sure about. We don't know if they're going to be contenders because realistically, outside of Altidore and Pozuelo, there's not really game changers like crazy MVP status type players. But at the same time, you have Richie Larea, who's currently with Canada in the qualifying matches for the World Cup. He's playing well. You have the youth in Jaden Nelson, who's a great player. Jaquil Marshall-Rudy, who's being scouted by Bayern, Juventus, Man City. So that's another young star in the making that TFC have. And with Chris Armas as the new coach, it's kind of like a new beginning with all these young players moving in and a new coach and a new system. It's definitely going to be fun to watch. I'm definitely going to keep my eyes on Jaquil Marshall-Rudy because I think that kid's going to be another crazy star. I think he's Alphonso Davies potential. And I think TFC might sneak a playoff spot if anything, maybe even go deep in the playoffs. I'm personally excited. TFC also just released their new home jerseys, which look amazing. So I'm probably gonna have to buy one of those. But yeah, stay tuned. I think their season opener is April 17th. And TFC are definitely a team to watch this season.
Okay, back to NHL. So the Leafs have been having a current downward trend recently. They've only won 4 out of their last 10 games.
Yeah, I mean, as a Leafs fan, I'm not 100% upset because I watch these games and I know that they're playing well. I know that they're doing what they need to do. We've run into a few hot goalies, Hellebuyck a few times, Thatcher Demko a few times. We've gotten unlucky a lot. Austin Matthews specifically, he's been hitting posts like crazy. But I think good teams find a way to win games, and right now the Leafs aren't doing that. But I think they're going to get back to their form. They haven't left anything on the table. They haven't really had performances where me personally, I was like, they sucked or they didn't play well. But I think this is just a part of hockey. I think teams go through hot trends and cool trends, and even a lot of the times games where you feel you should win, but you don't. I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think a lot of Leafs Nation is overreacting a little bit, but yeah, it's definitely room to improve for sure.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there that it's kind of like a season of flows, I've noticed, especially this season. Like one, you'll be hot for a little bit, maybe you go cold for a little bit, but I don't think it's anything to worry about right now. And I mean, you know Leafs Nation, right? You know Leafs fans, they'll freak out over anything. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. I think they'll get back to their form. Like you said, it's been a lot of bad luck, a lot of hot goalies. Like there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah, it's not like we're the Sabres.
Mm.
No, I was going to touch on this too, just saying like every team goes through every good team goes through these points in their season where they kind of go through a bit of a downward trend. But I mean, especially with this season too, you're facing all the same teams all the time. Eventually, like teams kind of like figure certain players' tendencies and stuff, right? When you're facing Edmonton and like everyone in the division 8 or 9 times, like eventually you're going to go through something like this. But I don't think there's anything to worry about. I still feel like they'll finish on top, make the playoffs, so it's fine.
Well, Mitch Marner has been scoring a lot more often. Like, how important do you guys think he is to the team?
Oh, wow. I think Austin Matthews is 1 and Mitch Marner is 1A in terms of importance to this team. I think He elevated his game. He added a new dimension. He can now shoot the puck like crazy, which I think last year everyone was screaming at their TV for him to shoot the puck because he's always been a pass first player, even when there's a good scoring opportunity. He's scoring a lot more, which I personally love because I know Mitch Marner is a great shooter. I've seen it, and I think everyone else can agree with me. And not only that, but it takes pressure off of Austin Matthews, John Tavares, a bunch of their third line role players, Mikheyev. It adds that extra safety net in case Austin Matthews doesn't score, in case John Tavares has a bad game, in case Jason Spezza, with the season he's having, doesn't score. I think Mitch Marner has just added that extra dimension to his game that elevates him to the next level. And with this season going on right now and how Mitch Marner's playing, I think he's elevated himself into the top 10 players in the league.
Yeah, just touching on that, I think, like you said, a lot of fans just watching him over these years, not shooting has always been that number one problem with him. I feel like he's always put himself in situations where he should be shooting. He gets great chance for himself, but he's always looking to pass, and he has that mentality. And, it's not bad, but I think now he's really matured as a player, and he's starting to understand the situations he's in better. And like you said, it's a new dimension for his game. And I think it's really good for the Leafs because over these years, he's taken a lot of criticism. And I think he's kind of silencing his critics right now with his recent play and this development. And he's really become that star that alongside Austin Matthews.
Yeah, you could see he's put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember watching him in London, and he'd put up a ton of points, and then his goal scoring never really translated to the NHL until around this time. And you could tell that he put that work in and made that jump. So it's really good to see. And I think he's going to continue to improve and continue to get better. Like, he's still super young alongside Matthews. Like, the sky's the limit for those two, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well, what
do
we think about Jack Campbell being the new starting goaltender?
I don't know if that's going to last long. I think Freddie's been playing injured for a long time. I think he needs rest immediately. I think that Jack Campbell is a great goalie, great person. He's a great teammate. I love him. But I just don't think in those pressure scenarios, he's that calming presence that Freddie Anderson brings when he's on his game. I know I hate to bring this up because I'm a Leafs fan, but I know that in the Boston series, a lot of the times I know people are going to say Game 7, where's he at? Game 7, blah, blah, blah. Well, the Leafs didn't show up to Game 7. It wasn't just Frederik Andersen. But throughout the series, when Boston was pounding us with shots and the fans are screaming, and even I was like, I don't know how these players are getting through it. Freddie Andersen made that save, that slowed play down, calmed everything down, and I think he's the guy. I think Jack Campbell is a great backup and will continue to be a great backup, especially on a Leafs team like this that could go far in the playoffs. But I think they should stick with Freddie Andersen.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think Freddie is, at one point you need some rest, right? Like, I feel like he's been that guy for so long, and there hasn't really been somebody that you could rely on. Now there's Campbell, and you can't just jump into relying on him night after night, right? Like, yeah. Jack Campbell's a really good goaltender, but he's not Andersen, not yet. I think it's still Freddie's job unless something crazy happens.
Yeah, I agree.
I think sometimes fans tend to forget about stuff like that players have done in the past. Obviously Freddie's had a rough season, but a lot of times in the past few years, he's really carried the team through some bad games. In the Boston series, like you said, I think right now he's just going through a little bit of a rut. But I feel like, he doesn't really deserve like as much criticism as he's getting because for all he's done with the team. But I think he still should be the starter as well.
Yeah, I think he will be. I think this injury has really plagued him. He's had a pretty poor save percentage and goals against for the last, I think I saw a stat that said past 72 or 82 games, which is crazy because you don't even notice it because this Leafs team's so good.
Yeah.
But you could tell he's playing injured. You could tell he's not the same Freddie that we're used to. So I think once he comes back and he's back to normal, I think he should be the starter.
Okay, let's talk about Patrick Laine. He keeps on getting benched by John Tortorella. Do we think he'll want to remain in Columbus? He's an RFA this season, so.
Yeah, a lot of people when he got traded there kind of saw the writing on the wall, and everyone predicted that this would happen. His play style does not mesh at all with what John Tortorella expects. He's been doing pretty well with the team in terms of like stats, right? But his work rate and stuff, a lot of people predicted that this would happen. As for will he stay in Columbus, I really don't think he will. And it's not only just with him. It's been with all the star players that have been with Columbus. Artemi Panarin left. Matt Duchene, when he went there at the trade deadline a few years ago, he left in the offseason. This has been happening a lot with their stars. And I don't know, maybe you can maybe say the problem is Tortorella, but at the same time, his style of coaching, I think, is really what teams should strive for, like the hard work and that he tries to get out of players. So I feel like some Columbus fans might say that John Tortorella is the problem. Maybe he should go because they don't want to see someone like Patrick Laine leave the team, like another star leave the team. It leaves a bad image of the organization, but I don't think he'll stay if John Tortorella is still there.
I don't mean to call out Columbus, and I have all the respect for an NHL organization and even their fans. So no Columbus fans come at me here, but right now, who would want to stay in Columbus right now and play? Seriously, you have John Tortorella, who's probably the most notorious. Like he's a bad coach to his players. He does not treat his players nicely. You have, no offense to Columbus, Ohio, they're not necessarily a hockey city. They don't really care that much about their hockey.
Putting it nicely.
Yeah, like
not a city a lot of professional athletes want to be in at all.
Exactly.
No offense.
And Pierre-Luc Dubois wanted out for a reason. He's not a bad player, that's for sure. He stopped trying for one reason and one reason only. John Tortorella is not a good coach in today's NHL. The players do not want to listen to this guy. I don't understand. Don't get me wrong. Patrick Laine is a lazy player. He's a lazy winger. He's your typical winger who sits on the line and just waits until you break out of the zone. Don't get me wrong. But he's talented. And he's your best player. I don't care that he's lazy. He's your best player and you're benching him. The way you bench Dubois, the way you bench Duchene. Come on. Not everyone's going to be Seth Jones, who's a workhorse on the back line and carries your team. Sorry, John Tortorella. I don't know why you're doing this stuff to these star players. Like, you're just wasting this kid's career. I think he's going to leave. And if he doesn't leave right away, he's going to hold out until somebody offer sheets for sure. 100%.
Yeah, I think Laine will be offer sheeted as well. I think Torts is stuck in like 2004 at this point. Like, come on, man. Like, it's a skill league now. It's not about the workhorses anymore. This is a pure skill league. Like, there's guys who work hard and they're really good. There's guys who work hard who aren't as good, and the hard work gets them there. But he can't expect that from like, I know you got to work hard, but for guys like Laine, and I don't know, it's become a pattern. Stars don't want to be there. Stars don't want to play for him.
And don't get me wrong, Columbus does not have a playoff team to back this behavior up from Tortorella. Like, if, for example, Tortorella was coaching the Leafs and the Leafs are a contender, I think Patrick Laine would sit down, shut up, and take it and just be like, okay, at least I have a chance to win a cup. This guy is alone in Columbus. He's on his own island with no other good players other than Seth Jones and maybe a few other players. I can't even name good players on Columbus because they all left. Mm-hmm. They don't care about staying in Columbus. And I feel like it's not the city, although they're not a hockey city. It's not the city. It's not the general manager. It has to be the coach, and John Tortorella has to go.
I just want to touch on quickly, just again, I know you guys have been roasting Tortorella, and I agree with the whole fact about like his tendencies and stuff like that should be left behind. But I still feel like he's a good coach. It's just the way he goes about it is bad, right?
Yeah, tactically, yes. Tactically, yes, he's a good coach. Because you got to manage your players properly. Yeah, you can't bench these players 24/7.
Because he still makes his teams competitive. Like you said, like there's not a lot of talent on this team outside of like Laine and like Seth Jones and a few other people, right? But he still makes them competitive, and I think like that shouldn't be knocked. against him. Like, I think you compare him to like Mike Babcock, like we did last time. I think he's much better in terms of like getting the most out of what he has, and he can still make it competitive. But I just think the way he goes about it and the way he interacts with his players is just, no one wants to deal with that. So even though he can make a team competitive, and if they did have talent, they could probably do something, no one wants to go through with that. And yeah, I think
No, you said it perfectly there. Like, that's exactly what it is. He's honestly, he's a great coach in the technical aspect of it.
Mhm.
The way he goes about it is just, it's not how the NHL really is right now. I think if he had the players, if he had a team built around him that was all workhorse guys, I think they'd be phenomenal. But he doesn't right now. And maybe that's the general manager's fault, but I don't know. I think something's got to change.
Mhm.
And at what time are you Nick Foligno, captain of this team and notable workhorse who John Tortorella loves? What time do you sit down with yourself and be like, I've been pushing myself to limits that no other player really does on this team, and what am I doing it for?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of stuff is going to change in Columbus for sure.
Yep.
All right, the topic we've all been waiting for, the Buffalo Sabres. So first, they fired Ralph Kruger. And this just in, as per Ryan Boyd, our producer on the segment, they've just lost 18 straight games and are in last place in the league. So the NHL record is 18 straight losses from the 03 to 04 Pittsburgh Penguins. So thank you, Sabres, for beating this record now and meeting up to it.
This is just so hard, man. Like, I'm a Sabres fan, unfortunately, and it's just nothing but pain and suffering, man, for like 10 years now. It's just, I don't know what it is. It just, no matter what we do, nothing works. And there's just so much blame to go around from top to bottom. It all starts at the top with their owners, obviously, but it's just everything, scouting, drafting, everything's just been horrible the last few years. It was a horrible tank. They got Jack Eichel and they did absolutely nothing with him, and he's probably going to leave in the offseason, and I won't even be mad at him for it because it's totally understandable. Who the hell would want to play here? Like, they're so bad. No one thought they would be this bad. Like, everyone said, they're going to be challenging for a playoff spot. They got some nice pickups, and now we're halfway through the season, and they're the worst team in the league again. So I don't know so much needs to change. They probably got to rebuild once again. And I don't know. I can't, I don't even know what to say. There's no more excuses. It's a mess. It's a mess.
I'm going to step in here and kind of rub salt in the wounds
go ahead. I can't defend.
No, I'm just going to, for context for our viewers, me and Lucas have been, friends for a long time, and when I was a kid as a Leafs fan with Nicholas Hagman as our highest scorer, my friend Lucas here would always say the Leafs are so bad and the Leafs, they suck, go Sabres, blah blah blah.
I was a kid, man.
The tables have turned. The Sabres suck. They have 6 wins. This is crazy. I've never seen a team that sucks this much.
Yeah, I think this has just turned into a joke now. I think every league has that team that's like a laughing stock of the league, and they will be forever. And I think that's what the Sabres have turned into.
I thought it was going to be Detroit Red Wings.
Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
No, man. It's not.
I thought it was going to be the Red Wings this season because the Sabres on paper have a good team.
That's what I mean.
They have a good team.
Doesn't matter.
They're cursed, bro. I'm telling you. And it's like, no matter, like, look at everything. Like, Dahlin has regressed. He's supposed to be like a generational defenseman, and he looks horrible. He looks like he can't defend.
Yeah. When he got drafted, people said he was going to be like great, like the greatest.
Yeah.
And he's like not at all.
And like people make the argument, right? Like, defensemen take a bit longer to develop and stuff, but he's looked like he's gotten worse every year, right? And then Taylor Hall comes here, and that's supposed to be a huge pickup. He's an all-star. He won the MVP a couple years ago. He's going to play amazing with Jack Eichel. He has 2 goals this year. Like, how does that happen? Only does that happen to us. So I'm just.
At least your jerseys look good.
They need a complete overhaul.
They need
complete overhaul.
Everything, not just the team.
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom. The
ownership, man.
They need
new owners.
Change the mascot if you have to. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everything.
Oh God.
Gone.
Everything.
That's what Shanahan did when he got into the Leafs. Complete overhaul.
I mean,
Fired-
Carlton stayed.
Yeah, Carlton stayed, but fired everyone. The PA guy fired.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
And poor Andy
No more.
Frost. Shout out Andy Frost.
Yeah, I loved Andy
Okay.
Frost.
We love
I
you, Andy
love
Frost.
Andy
Before
Frost.
this turns into a Sabres rip-on podcast, let's move on to some other topics here. Let's talk about NFL. Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski signed another year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So are they the favorites for next year's season?
No, they're not. They weren't favorites last year. They're not favorites this year. Brady's ageless. He's going to be fine. Gronk's going to be fine too. It doesn't make them the favorites. Like, it's big news. Might be their last year, both of them. But you can't count out the Chiefs ever. The Chiefs are going to come back. They're going to probably win the Super Bowl. It's almost inevitable at this point that they're going to be there at least. So I don't think they're the favorites, but I think they could still compete and contend again.
I'm not going to speak too much on this matter just because we're a little short for time. But all I'm going to say is, can you really bet against the defending champions and the greatest of all time? Come on.
Yeah, no, you're right.
All right, on to our next segment. You guys know what it's called. What's Lucas tweeting about? This is where we go on Twitter. I stalk Lucas's tweets, and I wonder what is going on in this man's mind. But, we have some good tweets this week, so nothing too harsh. The Toronto Raptors did a shout out to Matt Devlin on his 1,000th regular season game. And you said Matt Devlin hasn't missed a beat in 1,000 games. Easily one of the best in the business. His voice is recognizable across the country. So what about that?
Yeah, Matt Devlin is, like, when you hear a Raptors game, it's always him, right? Like, he's the guy who's been there through it all. Like, through every player that comes in and out of the league, he's always been through it. And I think he's phenomenal at his job. I aspire to be as good as he is at whatever I do. And I appreciate him, and I know all Raptor fans do. He's amazing. I never hear any hate from Matt Devlin. I think him and Jack and him and Leo together, it works so well, and I'm happy to see him here for 1,000 games. Hopefully he's here for another 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's just these commentators that you'll always remember. There's Joe Bowen, Martin Tyler, Alan Smith, Clive Tilsley, and then there's Matt Devlin. There's voices that are always going to be recognizable throughout history, and I think especially with the Raptors 2019 championship run, Devlin's going to be associated with that for the rest of his life,
100%.
and probably for the rest of the Raptors' existence. So.
Yep.
All right. And now your next tweet says, "Good on Masai and Bobby for not panic trading the greatest rapper of all time. Let's work on re-signing him now."
Yeah, I always thought if they were to move him, it would be a panic trade. I know it's not because we didn't do it, obviously, but it seems as if Masai was holding out for Tyler Hero, and I'm happy he didn't pull the trigger without getting what he wanted to get. He held firm on his line, what he wanted, and you don't just give up a guy like Kyle Lowry who can make or break the kind of the power shift in the NBA, right? Like, if he went to the Lakers, that's a whole different Laker team. Like, he could take them there. If he went, I don't know, to the Sixers, like, that scares the Nets a little bit. But I'm happy he didn't do it, and I'm really hoping they could work to re-sign him. I want to see him retire here. I think he's good for developing players, like helping Freddie move along, and now Malachi Flynn, even Gary Trent. Like, he can help Gary Trent like crazy. I think he will re-sign, honestly. Like, in my heart of hearts, I think he will, but I guess we'll have to see.
Okay, our 5-minute major segment. This is where we're going to be debating on some pretty controversial topics, or just things that are going on in our mind right now. So let's start off with, does the NBA as a product benefit from players coming together to create super teams? So, with NBA fans becoming aggravated over the news that players like Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge are joining the Brooklyn Nets, a team of which has high caliber players like Irving, Harden, and Durant, my bad. NBA fans are left wondering, so, does the NBA have a problem with super teams, or do super teams actually help increase interest in the league? What do you guys think?
It's a weird, like, tightrope kind of, right? I think that super teams could be beneficial in ways that it helps viewership. It helps teams like the Nets, who were never really anything like special, right? Now they're huge. It helps that market a ton, but I think it is bad in general for the league. It makes it so there's no parity. You always know what's going to happen. I think it's been like that for a long time now. Like besides the Raptors winning the championship and maybe the Heat making it last year, even though it was an odd year, it makes it so much more boring, in my opinion, in my eyes, knowing that the Nets are probably going to win this championship, right? The only team that maybe could stop them is the Lakers, who are banged up like crazy right now. And it always kind of puts like this David versus Goliath feel on it, like it did with LeBron and the Warriors. But in most cases, Goliath is gonna kill David in this.
Yeah, and all this just to take down a 36-year-old LeBron is a little much for me, but I do agree. Like I think although beating a super team is fun, the way Toronto did in 2019, I think that's fun and that's a cool story. Nobody really recognizes that before Toronto beat Golden State was in the NBA Finals for what was it, 5 or 6 seasons in a row. Like that gets boring. It gets annoying as a fan. Like I didn't want to watch, other than the 2016 final, I didn't want to watch the finals because I was like, okay, Golden State's gonna win it. Like it's annoying. I don't want to watch the same team over and over again win the same trophy. It's kind of like France if they were to win the World Cup 3 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really as fun. I don't know. I think it's bad for the league. I think that's why the salary cap should be a little more strict, the way the NHL is, because there's no really super team in the NHL. But that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the appeal of it, obviously from the players' perspectives, because they want to win championships, they want to have successful careers, and you can see it from a fan perspective as well, because they want to see a very entertaining product, and they want to see it is really entertaining when you see all these good like superstar level players come together and play. But I think it is bad in general for the game, knowing what's going to happen every single year. The NBA, compared to the NHL, it's always a bit more predictable because stars have such a bigger impact on games in the NBA compared to the NHL. And having so many of them on one team just makes it even more predictable. So it is a problem. And I don't know how, I mean, I mentioned it before earlier, talking about how teams kind of just have to hope that they draft stars and build them up that they can compete like that. But it's definitely an issue that's been going on for a lot of years now. And I think it's an issue, and I don't know. I think it would be a lot better if it wasn't like this.
Yeah. What you said about it being like a more entertaining product, I understand it from that viewpoint, to where
From a standalone,
I'd rather watch the Brooklyn Nets play than the Detroit Pistons play. Like much rather that. But I don't know, man. Like it's so boring. There has to be some kind of solution to it. There has to be like a stricter cap or like some sort of rule in place that you can't just sign LaMarcus Aldridge for like $1 million.
Yeah.
After he's making 13 on a buyout. Like that's such a dumb rule. There has to be maybe a waivers type of system where you'd have to clear waivers, like anything.
It's the same thing with Boogie Cousins in the 2019 final when he signed with Golden State, and everyone's saying, "Oh, this guy just guaranteed himself a ring." And I think that's what LaMarcus is doing here. He's trying to guarantee himself a ring with Brooklyn by making a super team and taking a lot less money. Like, I just don't agree with it. I don't like that concept at all.
And I get it from the player's perspective, right? Because like that secures your legacy. Like you win a ring, that's it. Like you're set in stone. Like you're an NBA champion forever.
Yeah.
And maybe a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge or Blake Griffin, like that's the difference between being a Hall of Famer and not being a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
There are players, right, who are kind of still holding true to that. Like, I'm not chasing a ring, like Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
It's a guy, like, and you can't fault guys like Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, right? Because that's like a They were
That's
built
different though. They were drafted.
different.
That's
Yeah,
different.
I don't
Like
think-
KD going there.
KD going there that's why they call him, the snake. He
And
left.
again, like, what
he
are you going
left
to
a
do
good
if you're
team.
Golden State, right? Like, you're not going
Yeah.
to say, no, Kevin Durant, I don't feel like signing you because that would be making a super team, and that's dumb. I don't
Yeah,
want
of course, of
Yeah,
course.
of course you're going to take him. It's
You
just,
you
there's
kind
nothing
of
you
just
can
blame
do.
the players at that point. Like, are you seriously gonna like try to secure yourself a ring by stacking up a team rather than, in the case of Durant, you had a Western Conference finals appearance, and you were up 3-1, and you're really just gonna toss that away instead of trying to beat them the next year?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like looking at Brooklyn specifically, the team has changed so much compared to last year. They got rid of so many players that
Yeah.
made, because they were already like an entertaining competitive team, right?
Yeah,
And they just threw that all away because they had the chance, because they signed Durant and they got Harden and they got Kyrie Irving. And I feel like Brooklyn fans will say, well, it was good, right? But I think fans of the game in general will be like, but it kind of took away from like this sort of appeal that the team had before, where it was a bunch of guys just making the team competitive and making a name for themselves.
Yeah, and one problem with super teams being made is that when one's made, always a second's going to be made.
Yeah, because that's the only way to counter.
It's the only way to counter it. So like you see that happen, and then the Lakers, they're going to sign Drummond. Of course they're going to sign Drummond. Like of course he's going to want to go there. There's no room for him on the Nets. So where else is he going to go?
Well, to be fair, the Lakers, I think in this case right now, the Lakers were the first super team in the league right now, because what 1-2 punch is better than LeBron and AD?
No, I don't know about that though. I don't know about it being a super team. I think you can only really call it a super team when there's like three.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of good 1-2 punches in the league. Like before the
good, but like LeBron and AD good, like that's
I know, but before the Warriors were like the KD Warriors, they still had a great 1-2 punch, and they
for sure,
one of the best teams, if not the best team of all time.
Yeah.
So
that 1-2 punch, it's a lot of teams in history, like even like in the 80s and 90s, had like two players, but I think it was started with the Heat when they had Dwayne Wade, LeBron, and Chris Bosh, and then
I think that's the turn,
right?
Yeah,
that was the turning point. It was LeBron's decision, and now it came back to bite him.
Okay, so.
Okay.
I thought you were gonna stop talking. I was like, okay, let's transition. Okay, so let's transition to what can only be called the complete opposite of a super team. So, as we know, the Buffalo Sabres have now lost 18 straight games. They've met the NHL record of 18 straight losses set by the Penguins in the 03-04 season. So, by all accounts, Buffalo has been a quite difficult place to play over the last decade, with players like Ryan O'Reilly, who has famously said, that he lost his love for hockey while playing there. And it makes you wonder too, that is this a result of what tanking does to a franchise? And does it create a culture that is complacent with losing? So, or if done right, can tanking actually benefit NHL teams, or does tanking always result in situations similar to what Buffalo was going through right now?
No, tanking, I think, is it fun to go through as a team and a fan of the team? No, because I experienced it with my Leafs. But is it beneficial? 100% yes. Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, those four players right there are a result of tanking teams and have all turned these organizations around. And that's just off the top of my head. I'm not even looking into in-depth stats. It sucks to tank, and although it is looked down upon, I do understand when you're a team like the Leafs were a bad team. The 2015-16 Leafs were a really, really bad team, and they needed help. And Austin Matthews, the savior, he came and helped them out. But I think tanking does benefit teams, but you have to do it right. You can't. Jack Eichel, if he were played properly and he were on a decent team, that's a top 10 player in the NHL. Jack Eichel's a talent, but he's on a horrible team who don't know how to develop their players. So in the case of the Buffalo Sabres, tanking has been the dumbest thing they could have done, because not only are they wasting their own time, they're wasting their fans' time, and they're wasting the careers of really good players. Like Jack Eichel has wasted, what's it been now, 6 years, 7 years? That's a waste of his time. He hasn't done anything there.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it and everything about the Sabres. I don't want to get into them again, but there's been a lot of good. There's other good players that have been there for a while. Sam Reinhart has been very productive throughout his career, and I feel like a lot of people don't give him a lot of credit. They kind of look at him because he was drafted the same year as Leon Draisaitl ahead of him, right? So people
Yeah.
say like that was a bad decision, but he's been a productive player too. And touching on the whole tanking thing in general, it's how teams get the star players, right? But I think more teams should try to stay competitive, but just draft better. So, yeah, just look at the Detroit Red Wings, the way they've been competitive for the last 20 years, right? Obviously now they're not really exactly competitive. They're going through a rebuild themselves. But I feel like more teams should strive to have that just consistency in the organization, because no fans should have to be put through that, to have to go and support a team that they know has been built to lose. And I just think things need to change that way. But if right now the way things are, the only way to get a star game-changing player is to tank. And I think more should be put into just trying to develop stars yourselves in the organization.
Yeah, you know what? I hate tanking. I hate every aspect of it. I think it is such a dumb way to provide success to an organization, even if it has worked in the past with guys like Crosby and Ovechkin. Like, it shouldn't be about that. Like, work on your player development. Look at Edmonton. Their player development sucks. Like, yeah, you got McDavid. He could have played in the NHL when he was 12. Like, yeah, look at what else they've done. They've had the first pick, it feels like 100 times, and they can't get it. Like, they can't get it going still. They're still not going to win anything. No offense to Edmonton fans. Sorry, I'm going off a little bit. But you do have to draft well, and it's important to draft well. And when you tank, it kind of bumps your chances of drafting well, but it doesn't do anything for your player development. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, you might get a star, but what's that going to do if you can't develop them properly? Like, the Leafs have great player development. They've developed their stars into superstars, but it doesn't work for everyone. And it's in every sport that tanking is a problem. Like, look at even basketball, right? Teams will tank for that first pick, and if they get it, like, it could change everything. Like the Cavs getting LeBron, right? But it's better when a team can just, instead of rebuild, you retool, right? Like, I think that's what's going to happen with the Raptors. They're not going to rebuild in the sense they're just going to retool their roster around guys they have, like Siakam, Van Fleet, stuff like that. If you could see a team retool, it's a lot better for fans, and it's a lot better for the league as a whole, as opposed to a complete rebuild where you completely like have a fire sale of your team, even though I think that's what the Sabres are gonna have to do.
Yeah.
I think a rebuild. Sorry, my internet's a little wacky right now, but I think
You're good.
I think a rebuild has to start from the coaching staff, the managerial staff, even the scouts. Like, if you're going to tank and get a good pick, like Lucas said, how the Leafs did really well with their picks and stuff, that has to start with your scouts. That has to start with your GM. That has to start like from the very top. So I feel like if you're going to rebuild and you're really like hoping to tank for a good pick, you really got to start from the top and work your way down.
Yeah, and they got to be really carefully planned out, because a lot of times teams rely so heavily on that top pick and they tank and they don't get it, right?
Yeah.
Buffalo again, like
Lottery's important.
Eichel, they tank for McDavid, right? And Eichel's still a really good player, but would McDavid have made a difference? Maybe it would have made them a little bit more competitive, but maybe challenging the playoffs when they had a better
maybe
player.
More than 6 wins.
Yeah, okay, we're not talking about this year. Like
8.
when they had like Evander Kane and Ryan O'Reilly, and it looked like they can maybe build something, right?
Yeah.
But I still don't think it would have made a difference, right? Because in general, the team didn't prepare for it properly. They didn't draft other players that could help them. So
yeah,
there's so much that has to be considered with tanking.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I think regardless of like whether you want that pick or not, you should go out and try to win every single game. There shouldn't be a tanking attitude in the game, because that just makes, like we said in the opening point, it develops kind of a losing attitude in your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you see a team that's been losing for so long trying to get these picks and acquire these picks, they're never going to win anything. The Sabres aren't going to win the way that they're run. I don't think Edmonton's going to win the way that they're run with all the tanking that's happened. It's a losing system. And I think you should just play your heart out every game, try to win every game you can, and whoever is the worst team, you'll see that. You'll see who the worst one is, and they should get that higher draft pick if they win the lottery, the best draft pick. But I think the lottery is a good way to counter it, but I don't know. I don't think you'll ever see tanking leave the game.
I think touching that whole thing about the losing mentality is a good thing to touch on too, because looking at a team like Chicago, for example, they were supposed to be going through a rebuild right now, right? But they're still they're a pretty competitive team, because I think at the base with Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves and Duncan Keith, obviously Taves isn't playing, but he's probably still around the team.
Mm-hmm.
They have that winning mentality that they've had when they won their 3 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
And it spreads throughout the whole team, and it still makes them competitive. With Buffalo, they don't have anyone in that team that has like any record of winning, and all they know is losing.
They don't even have leaders at that point. Like right now, even without Taves, Patrick Kane's the leader on that team. Although when people think of Patrick Kane, they think of him as the speedy winger, the silky, skill moves and always backhand shelf. But inside that dressing room, he's how old is he now? Probably 30, 33, 31, something like that. He's a leader now. He's won cups. He's been there. He's the one teaching DeBrincat and Strome. He's teaching these guys, this is how you guys win. This is what you got to do. Mm-hmm. So I think 100% that winning attitude is definitely not there when you're tanking.
Yeah.
Okay, Canadian Athlete of the Week. So this week's Canadian athlete that we have chosen is Golden State Warriors small forward Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, Andrew Wiggins had a pretty good week. He averaged 25.6 points per game this past week, with also a 40-point performance against the Memphis Grizzlies. He's done really well for Golden State. I love talking about him with my coworkers at North Pole Hoops. He's a Canadian star. I feel like he's a little bit slept on because of his time at the Timberwolves and all that nonsense, but he's definitely not a bust. And I can't wait until Klay Thompson joins that team to see how great of a three Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, and Andrew Wiggins are going to be together.
Okay, polls. So you guys know every week we're going to be posting a set of questions on our social media, specifically our Instagram at EmergeTO. If you want to place your own vote, you can visit that username right there, and we'll have them up right after this episode. So for the first question we're going to be having up there is, does the NBA benefit from players coming together to create super teams? And then we have, can tanking have a positive impact on NHL teams? So go ahead and place your votes right after this episode. All right, that's it for this week's podcast. Hopefully we'll see you guys next week.
Peace out.
Later.
All right.
I feel like Ryan's gonna do like a collective of like stupid outros now.
Oh, dude, Ryan is gonna want to kill. I'm sorry, Ryan.
Canadian men's Olympic qualifying. Why is that like? Is that what it's called? CONCACAF.
Oh my god.
This girl's losing it.
She's losing. Oh.
CONCACAF's men's, so the CONCACAF. Okay.
Tajon Buchanan.
Stroke. CONCACAF. CONCACAF men's Olympic qualifying. Canada Olympic.
Come on.
CONCACAF. I can do it.
We're gonna have to make like an edit of all of you saying CONCACAF.
Just like in a row,
over and over again.
CONCACAF.
CONCACAF. We need some good content. Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1.